won't be.
Small problem.
Good evening and welcome to the April 20th, 2021 regular meeting of Findlay City Council. We will start with the roll call.
Mr. Greeno?
Here.
Mr. Haas? Mr. Hellman?
Here.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Present.
Mr. Russell?
Here.
Mr. Schindelnecker?
Here.
Mr. Slough?
Here.
Ms. Warnicki? Here. And Mr. Wolfson?
Present.
Mr. Haas contacted me just prior to the meeting. They had an appliance emergency that created a big mess. I will entertain a motion to excuse him. Mr. Russell.
Move to excuse Bud.
Second, Mr. Hellman. All in favor of excusing Mr. Haas from tonight's meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. He is excused. Let's stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will accept a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. We have no changes or additions to tonight's agenda. I will accept a motion to approve the April 6th regular session meeting minutes. Mr. Slough.
I have moved to approve the minutes as circulated.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. We have no proclamations. We have no recognitions or retirement resolutions this evening. We do have two oral communications. The first one is Eric, I'm going to pronounce it Chair, and Eric would like to speak on a problem he's having in his neighborhood. Eric, you have 4 minutes.
All right. The issue we have in our neighborhood right now is the city mission. Ever since they've been allowed to expand, we've had all kinds of issues of people sleeping in our yards. A gentleman set up a lawn chair in front of our yard and kicked his feet up on his car, and he was there every day we would leave for work, every day we'd come home from work. They park in our yards. My yard is so heavily damaged that there's actually a rut that you will be able to see in these pictures. I'm going to circulate my phone around. Feel free to take a look at the pictures. If you have questions, feel free to ask. If the phone logs out, the passcode is 042021. Today's date.
That's now public.
That's fine. I change it as soon as I leave here. The other issue that we had that made me contact Mr. Niemeyer was the city mission has recently had a refrigerated truck delivered to their property that they put as far away from their building and as close as they could to their neighbor's building, which you'll be able to see in the picture. It's probably 20 feet or less away from their house. It runs 49 times a day. It's off for 22 minutes, runs for 7 minutes. It's loud enough that I live across the street. I can hear it in my house with my windows up or my windows closed. My neighbor on the other side of me can hear it with his windows closed and everything. And it's getting to the point where we need city council's help to do something about this, because I have called the police. It's a 50-50 chance that they're going to show up, because I refuse to call the 911 number for somebody blocking my driveway. In March, when we had that 10 inches of snow, I had a guy blocking my driveway. I was only able to clear half the driveway. An officer drove by 4 times. At one point in time, I was even pointing at the car when he drove by. He gave me a dirty look, but he never stopped. So finally, I had to call the police, and then it took an hour and a half for them to come out, do something about it, and for the car to get removed. It's a constant problem. I mean, I could probably call the police. You'll notice there's one SUV in that picture that's parked near the edge of my driveway. It's only about 1.5 feet from my driveway. law says they have to be 3 feet from the driveway. I mean, technically, I could call the police almost every single day from somebody either parking right next to my driveway, across my driveway, or in my or a neighbor of mine's yard. I don't feel that we should have to put up with this stuff, especially with the refrigerated truck. I invited several of the members out to see it for themselves to believe it. And the other thing that is you can see in them pictures is there's a 500-gallon diesel tank sitting in front of the refrigerated truck. There's a sewer drain 50 feet or less from that 500-gallon diesel tank. There's no spill containment. There's no, I guarantee you the city of Mission does not have a hazmat team, nor do they probably know even how to do anything with hazmat. Right now there's an extension cord that runs out to the tanker. There's no lock on the pump at all. I can walk over there with my extension cord from my house, hook it up, and disperse the diesel fuel wherever I want to do it. On the ground if I wanted to, down the sewer line if I wanted to. There's nothing to stop anybody from doing it. So I'm here hoping that City Council will hear my plea, get the refrigerated truck out of our neighborhood, get the diesel tank out of our neighborhood, and provide us with some help where we don't feel so helpless with the people that are sleeping in our yards, parking in our yards. I've talked to the city streets department about the damage to the curbs and the road. They say it's not their problem, it's the engineer's problem. I've talked to the engineer's department. They say it's not their problem, it's the streets department's problem. I've called the streets department, told them what the engineer said. They came out, they took a look at it. They said it's the engineer's problem. I talked to the engineer again. He came out, took a look at it, did nothing about it, told me it wasn't his problem, left. I kind of gave up on it. I haven't brought it up since.
Eric, that's 4 minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion that we allow Eric 2 more minutes to continue to finish his comments.
Keep going.
Okay. I kind of gave up on it for a while, and then I brought it up again last year to a gentleman who had pretty much nothing to do with the streets or engineers department. And the streets department called me back and said that they were going to get our street on the replacement thing for this year, and that they were going to send a guy out to fill in the rut next to the curb with stone, but that never happened. So right now I'd say there's about a 6 to 10 inch hole right next to the curb in front of my house for anybody to step out of their car and break an ankle in. And I mean, right now I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do. The neighborhood wasn't this bad before the city mission expanded, and now we have people overdosing at the city mission. There's an ambulance there at least once a month. And I talked with the lady who stayed there, and she was telling me about how people overdosed. So I don't know. I'm looking to you guys and ladies for help, because I'm to the point where I feel like I probably need to start calling the cops every single time and see what happens. So,
does anybody have any questions for Mr. Russell?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, after you and I talked, I stopped by, as I said I would, took pictures, forwarded those on to our zoning department. And they were going to be out looking at it today and looking at responses on the refrigeration truck and the diesel tank. And I also spoke with the mayor about your concerns yesterday afternoon, and I'll counsel you as in public as I did during our phone conversations. If you see folks that are parking illegally or parking on your property or anything else, I do encourage you to immediately call the police department. I appreciate the fact that you use the non-emergency number. Thank you very much. But the only way our police can respond is if they know and you are their best eyes, obviously. And once again, I'm sorry that it is a challenge, and we have not yet had conversations with the city mission. They have previously always stated that they want to be good neighbors and good citizens of Findlay, and so now they have a challenge in front of them, but I've got to give them an opportunity to respond accordingly. As soon as I hear back from zoning, myself or the mayor, I'm sure, will be in touch to let you know what our next steps will be in that regards.
I appreciate that. To your point about them wanting to be a good neighbor and everything, the last time I spoke to the city mission, there was a car parked across my street. They honestly told me, that's not our problem, that's the police's problem, you need to call them, they have the right to park on the street. And my response to them was, I understand that. I am not complaining that they are parking in front of my house. I am complaining that they are parking across my driveway. And they said, that's not our problem, there's nothing we're going to do about it, you need to call the police. And that's the response that we as neighbors are receiving from them.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, stay tuned. Hopefully we can help solve your problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our second is Sharon Jess. That she would like to talk about the proposed alley changing to a one-way across from Baldwin at 1115 South Main and 1127 South Main. You have 4 minutes. Sharon?
Thank you. The alley runs parallel to our drive. Our drive is entered from the west, from the east, going west. The drive faces Main Street. Our problem is, if we enter that drive, we are going to be entering on the wrong way because they would change that to the one way. We would be entering the wrong way. We could go into the drive, park the car in the garage. When we exit, we would be backing the car out to the alley, but can't go forward to the light to get out safely. We would have to back across an alley intersection, which is right behind our house, blindly, back across that intersection, enough so that then we can make a choice to go either north or south. We feel that that would be very unsafe. We've been there about 30 years and don't choose to do that. The other thing that we would have is we could come from the west to go east, and then we would have to back into our drive and try to back the car into the single car attached garage, which was made, our house is 1927. We have a Honda Odyssey. So I'm not looking forward to that. So the problem is a safety problem. We don't want to be in a position of backing across an intersection alley to try to get out. When currently, of course, we can come right out of our drive into the alley, go forward, and safely exit on South Main. Hopefully you can understand how that all works out. It is only going to be, I understand, for that one block, but that one block involves the only way we get in and out of our driveway.
Question, Mr. Hellman.
I've got a quick question just for clarification for me. Has this one-way proposal been adopted already, or is this just
It has
proposed? Okay.
And how they seem to address it is they don't really understand our problem with the whole drive and getting into our property. I think Traffic Commission probably is who put a camera up to see, how people are going in and out of the drive, in and out of the alley. But that doesn't really address our problem that we have. We have actually, there's curbs on either side of this alley. It's very wide. Probably was used for 2 cars at one time. It is an intersect offshoot of Baldwin. I don't know. And we've been there over 30 years, and we have not had a problem with the traffic going both ways. My understanding somewhat is that there is a situation with how they want to put signals up. And they don't want to do that easier for them to put a one-way sign and not deal with another signal, I guess. I don't know. But it would be a huge safety issue for us if that were to happen.
Mr. Smelser, I got a question. Was this on the Traffic Commission's agenda previous, or is it going to be on?
It was. If you take a look at the Traffic Commission minutes, I was just leaping through to look at the dates myself because
We were notified several months ago that this could be proposed, and I called right away and told him, the individual that I talked to, what the problem would be for us to have that happen. And then I just didn't hear from anyone for months.
And my next question, is it under study right now? Is that's where it stands as of right now?
it is not. It is, the motion has already been made. And the minutes are here and the report is here for your acceptance. So that's why we sent another notice to the residents and said, hey, this is gonna be up for consideration at this council meeting. If you'd like to come and voice your opinion, because we knew we had a couple of people that weren't in favor of going one way, that we recommended they come to this meeting and inform this body about their position.
I'm not sure it's even legal to back over an intersection.
Well, there are a lot of legal issues here if we want to talk about those. The thing that I think bothered the Traffic Commission the most was that at a signalized intersection, we were essentially encouraging two-way traffic on a road that is not wide enough to carry two-way traffic. By signalizing that, we are transforming it from an alley to essentially a roadway. So, you know, certainly open to hear your opinions, but as I see it, that is not wide enough to be a road. We should not, off of a thoroughfare like Main Street, encourage two-way traffic into a road that is not wide enough to carry two-way traffic. And so you're faced with a decision about whether or not you want to widen the pavement section. I'm not even sure that we could do that within the right-of-way that exists. Whether you want to make it one way or whether you want to ignore the situation. I can tell you that it's not my opinion that the signalization cost is a concern at all. Nor is it that it would be easier just to put up a one-way sign and not put up a signal. This has everything to do from the Traffic Commission's perspective, in my opinion, with the pavement width and whether or not it is safe to operate two-way traffic there. If you look at the dates, this started out in October of 20. The recommendation was made by the traffic department to make it one way. We followed up in November. We followed up again in January. Much of the follow-up time lag was due to the fact that we did have video set up so we could examine the amount of traffic and the direction of the traffic. And again, based on that video evidence, which any of you could take a look at if you were so inclined, did not lead us to believe that the volume of traffic was sufficient to warrant signalization in two-way traffic or an improvement of the alley.
Everyone that lives on 2nd and 3rd Streets garages to the back, and they do use that alley to go back and forth.
Sharon, there's my copy of the minutes
Oh, okay.
if you don't have a copy.
No, sorry.
Mr. Hellman.
I'm not familiar with this situation, although I was curious. If you need a one-way street, can you make it one way the other way? I mean, why does it need to be one way?
Sure, you could make it one way the other way. If you made it one way
That
the
would,
other
that
way,
would solve our problem, because we could then exit where how the car is actually pointed when it comes after.
I understand. I mean, I don't know what's going on at the other end.
if you make it one way the other way, we would signalize the intersection. But one way the other way would certainly be safer with a signalized intersection than two-way traffic.
So then you've got a traffic signal in an alley.
Correct.
all intent and purpose.
There's all,
It's an offset.
it already
Mhm.
has
As well.
it already has a signal there though.
Well, I understand that, but the issue with that signal is it does not meet the transportation code guidelines because of the offset. So we needed additional signalization to meet code to signal the alley.
Mr. Russell?
If there's one thing I've learned during Paul's tenure here at the city is that whenever I disagree with him, I later, or actually pretty soon, find out that I'm wrong. So, Paul, tell me why I'm wrong here. All around my house, across the street, the alleys are two-way. Other than our neighbor's kid, as a new driver, most people keep it under 35. We've survived like that for the entire time I've been there. I think that with the low volume in this alley, the two-way traffic, when you see the two-way traffic, you simply adjust, and that's what we do on our side. You gave 3 options, one of which is to ignore. To me, this seems like one to ignore, and if that means removing the signal for the alley, that when it exits onto Main Street, if that's the way we make that signal legal per specs, why is that not an option?
I'm not sure that I said ignoring would make it legal. I said that was one of your options. Okay. If you were inclined to signalize the intersection, in my opinion, you are treating that a little different than other alleys. You are essentially treating that like a street. And if that's the council's inclination, that's fine with me. I did not feel like, given the traffic volume, that was sufficient reason to do that. I understand there are people that use the alley, and that's one of the reasons why we had so much discussion and actually went out of our way to say, hey, this is when the discussion is going to take place. Because in this particular instance, there is opinion that comes into play. Certainly we could signalize and make it one way going to the west. I should have really thrown that out as an option to begin with. I would prefer that option as opposed to ignoring it and leaving it the way it is, because we do know that we have a non-conforming situation there. So I'm just giving you my opinion.
Well, we do have a long time of living at that property and using that alley and know how it's used. There have only been a couple of incidences where no one really uses the alley except to go to their garages. There's no other purpose to go down there really. But there have been a couple of times where someone has pulled in. The alley is very wide and, like I say, has curves. And you actually can pass a car if you have to. We've done that. And like I say, in 30-some years, probably 2-3 times. So it really hasn't been an issue for people. And I don't think anybody would really think to use that alley. It doesn't go anywhere else except for the people trying to get in their garages.
Mr. Russell?
Paul, so we'll have this committee report come up, and if we were to yank this item off of the committee report for acceptance, and then ask for traffic commission to look at it, given the Jess's concerns, is that a valid, from a traffic commission standpoint? Is that a valid response at this point in time?
So, yeah, I think that would be one avenue that you could take, and Elliot can weigh in here, but what we've given you is an accurate depiction of what took place at the traffic commission. It is in your committee report. You can accept a committee report without necessarily agreeing with everything that is in that report. So you could still accept the traffic commission report and take this individual, I apologize, can't remember your name, but you can take her comments into account and say, we would like for the traffic commission to take another look at this alternative or that alternative as we have discussed. And that would then, based on your recommendation, go back to the traffic commission. We could have as many of you come to that meeting as want to come. We could give you access to the video that we reviewed as part of our consideration if you so choose, but certainly happy to take another look at it if that is your request.
Mr. Russell?
Given the Jess's specific situation and the fact that they are probably the single highest use, them and their neighbors to the south, highest users of this specific alley, and the fact that this change makes access to their garage relatively difficult. So she's raised good concerns, and I don't think that a one-way alley heading east, the one-way alley heading east, is what brings her concerns here. Are you still hearing her concerns and her situation? Do you still believe that the one-way alley heading east is the best solution here?
I do believe that is the best solution from the city's perspective and from an engineering perspective. But I'm certainly willing to take another look at it.
I think you'd specifically have to look at what our situation is there, because the video doesn't show what our problem would be. I don't look forward to backing into a cross alley, an intersection, and not knowing who's coming at me. And people blow that alley all the time and getting broadsided, or me backing, not seeing anybody, and doing that to someone else. That's what we're really looking at.
Mr. Wolfson?
Paul, if we take and go one way towards Main Street, the concern there from the committee was then we had to spend the additional money to signalize that street or that alley, correct?
Yeah, although I don't know that I would place it in the concern category.
Okay.
It is a consideration, as we do with every dollar.
Yes.
We take a look at what, the cost benefit is. The cost of the signalization did not really enter into the decision here. It's minimal. It was more about, do we treat this as a street when it's not? We have standards with regard to the width of a street that we hold people to every day.
Correct.
So, does the commission ignore the fact that this does not conform to the standards of a street and treat it like a street? Especially given the traffic volume that exists.
Yep, understood.
So that was the point with regard to the cost.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mrs. Jess. And we'll find out what they decide when that comes up in further business. Okay, that concludes our oral communication portion of tonight's meeting. We will, there are petitions.
An alley vacation request from Angela Tong on behalf of the City Mission to request a vacation for the alley running north and south between West Main Cross Street and West Front Street.
This will be referred to the City Planning Commission and Planning and Zoning Committee. We have no written communications, reports of municipal officers and departments.
Findlay Municipal Court Activities Report for March 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Findlay Fire Department Activities Report, wait a minute. Yeah. For March 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Findlay Police Departmental Activities Report for March 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Summary financial reports as of March 31st, 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Precipitation and reservoir levels report for first quarter 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Treasurer's reconciliation report for March 31st, 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
March 2021 financial summary report.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed?
Parks
Or,
and-
sorry, summary.
Parks and Recreation Board minutes of January 19th, 2021.
Questions or comments? Minutes to be filed?
Traffic Commission minutes for January 19th, 2021.
Questions or comments? Mr. Russell.
I would request that council refer item 1 back to the Traffic Commission, given the justice concerns, and that the rest of the, and that in our approval of the minutes, that we would recommend Traffic Commission relook at number 1, and the actions of item number 1 not take place until they have a chance to relook at it, given the justice concerns.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Approved as requested.
Memorandum of Understanding with Hancock Public Health. Letter from Mayor Munn.
Questions or comments? Mr. Russell.
These changes, Mayor, these changes being made to the current building software.
Yes, so this would just be to continue the memorandum of understanding and make the necessary upgrades to continue the program in our system as is.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Memorandum of Understanding an ordinance was created.
City Planning Commission minutes for April 8th, 2021.
Questions or comments? Minutes to be filed. Committee reports.
Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from Chris Ostrander to vacate a portion of Bliss Avenue at 1501 Lima Avenue, parcel number 6000001008687, in the Thorpe and Andrew addition of the City of Findlay. We recommend vacation of portion of Bliss Avenue as requested.
Mr. Russell.
So council is aware, this was a street on paper only. Actually, in the middle of the street was a sign for Yates and Young. This is one of these things that I don't think the applicant should have even had to come to council to request that it be vacated, because in essence it hasn't been a street since it was ever plotted. We asked Hancock Regional Planning to identify other such alleys and streets that are really on paper only, and come back to the Planning and Zoning Committee with the with a list of those. This is a study that was previously done in the 70s, and the goal of this would then to be do a mass, in some manner, citywide vacation of streets and alleys that do not really exist. In many cases, citizens don't even know that they're there. And so that is a process that Planning and Zoning has asked Hancock Regional Planning to initiate. We would expect a report back by our...
Second, Ms. Warnicki. All those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Committee report is approved. Legislation.
First reading for Resolution 9, 2021, a resolution approving the expenditures made by the Auditor's Office on the attached list of vouchers which either exceed the purchase order or were incurred without a purchase order, exceeding the statutory limit of $3,000, all in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 5705.41Z.
Mr. Wilson.
Motion to approve Resolution 9, 2021.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
And Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted. Ordinances.
First reading for ordinance 2021-35, an ordinance vacating a certain portion of a certain alley hereinafter referred to as the Bliss Avenue vacation in the city of Findlay, Ohio.
Next.
First reading for ordinance 2021-36, an ordinance approving residents outside the city of Findlay, Ohio by the Director of Public Service Safety and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell.
I would move that council statutory rules be suspended and ordinance 2021-036 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Schindeldecker. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wokser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give the ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2021-36, ordinance 2021-36.
Mr. Russell.
Move for adoption of ordinance 2021-036.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion. Mr. Russell.
Just a quick statement. Mr. Martin lives in the Hillcrest neighborhood, so it's not like he is very far from the city of Findlay, and this type of request is not without precedence. Us giving this assent, or our agreement tonight, basically says welcome to the city of Findlay to Mr. Martin.
Any other discussion or questions? Mr. Niemeyer.
Has this came up before, like years ago before I was on city council?
Ms. Mayor.
I am not sure about historical precedents, but I know that Mr. Smelter, our current service safety director, lives in the same neighborhood, and that the same waiver was given to him.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Wilson?
Just a quick question. For council, if we were to take the emergency clause out of this, how much time does that put onto the legislation becoming law? Is it 35 or 40 days?
Well,
Go ahead, it's 30 days.
Is it 30 days? That
Yeah,
was my question.
After the mayor signs.
Signs, correct.
Plus you gotta give it 2 more readings.
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought, I mean, if we suspended
Emergency
them-
Oh, sorry,
versus
you mean-
suspension of rules are two
No,
different things.
yes.
Forget
So
the
we
emergency.
suspended, we approve it, but we take the emergency clause out. It doesn't become law until,
30 days.
thank you.
Sorry, now I understand your question though, so, thank you.
I
I was
got
just
you.
gonna say, though that would be great, it's not necessary because I have already authorized a temporary waiver, which again is something that's been done before, so I do not.
Favor say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wokser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
And Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2021-37, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Hancock County Combined General Health District and declaring an emergency.
Okay. Old business. Mr. Niemeyer.
I just want to say a few things about the situation at the city mission. I did talk to Miriam, the food service manager, and she mentioned this is temporary. And then she's, I said, what's temporary? She said, could be up to 4 months, waiting on a walk-in freezer. We're talking 4 months, we're talking maybe August, July, September. And if this refrigerated truck kicks on now 49 times per day, that was at the temperature of about 52 degrees yesterday. So we're talking 90-degree temperature, it's gonna run all the time. It's sitting 20 feet from a triplex. So there was at least 3 bedrooms in this, 3 apartment triplex, so there is some big concern there. So I think all the councilmen should drive by there, or we need to get some type of action started.
Mr. Wilson.
I defer to Councilman Russell first.
Mr. Russell. You've
I'm
been
interested in
deferred.
what type of action you are recommending.
I would think it's a big enough property to at least move the semi up against their building, maybe to a neutral location. And she did inform me that City Mission customers, clients, whatever they would be, are not permitted to park on that property. That's for volunteers and employees. So there's an awful lot of parking going on West Front Street, maybe the West End Tavern, maybe Dietz's, our parking lot where the old Hostetler building was. And mainly they probably don't care because most of the license plates are from surrounding counties using the city mission.
Mr. Wobser?
This situation concerns me for a couple of different reasons. The fact that it temporary going through August is not temporary in my mind. Plus the skid tank of diesel fuel sitting there unattended, not locked, is the biggest concern I've got, quite honestly, beyond the issues it's causing the neighborhood. At the same time, it was just coincidental that the city mission has come to us asking for vacation of that alley that this thing is sitting on. You can't equate the two, and I would not say that we do that, but at the same time, I think this is as Grant mentioned earlier, this is a good neighbor issue, and I would expect that they would find a way to deal with this in a very short-term manner. If this is expanded storage for a cooler that's going to ultimately be expanded in their property, they should be able to put this truck someplace else and they can make runs back and forth from the truck to the kitchen and not have it sitting in the middle of a neighborhood. I guess my question is also to the mayor. Mayor, are you going to pick this up? Someone in your administration going to pick this up? I want to kind of know what our next steps are.
Yeah, so Councilman Russell met with me yesterday and shared Mr. Scherer's, hopefully I said that properly, concerns and issues. So as he mentioned earlier, Eric from zoning was supposed to look at the property today and give us an assessment of the situation related to zoning code violations, so that we can follow up with the city mission. Obviously, there's a number of other items that we'll try to address from a maintenance standpoint as well as enforcement. And it was news to me regarding kind of the parking policies at the city mission. So certainly that needs to be addressed. Again, making sure that there's appropriate parking for the residents that may be there, and that we'll work through that. So I will follow up and keep Mr. Niemeyer and Mr. Russell involved in the conversation to follow up with the list of concerns I have here, which are the refrigeration truck, the curb and rutting, and then city mission parking. And if I am missing any, I think Mr. Russell had a pretty good list when I met with him yesterday, so we'll follow up on those.
Very
The
good,
diesel
Mayor.
tank- the diesel tank.
City mission provides a great service to our community. However, the situation needs to be taken care of on their side. So thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Hellman?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Councilman Russell and Councilman Lutzer's comments as well as the mayor. I have a question though, does the city have a noise ordinance from a decibel rating?
Yeah,
Does this comply with that?
you have to get a reading.
Well, we ought to be able to do that, I would think.
We haven't done that since.
Most likely because our noise ordinance is not super extensive. So I would probably venture to guess that it would be in compliance with the noise ordinance.
I'm surprised, but okay, I'll take that. I think we need to show some respect to the abutting property owners
Completely
and
agree.
rectify the situation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other old business? New business? Mr. Russell?
Planning and zoning meeting, here's the advance notice, May 13th at noon in the council offices.
Mr. Wobser?
Strategic Planning Committee meeting on May 4th, 5:30 p.m. here in council chambers prior to the regularly scheduled council meeting.
Mr. Station?
Yes, thank you. It's time for one of our annual presentations. It'll be the first, end of the first quarter, going into the second quarter presentation, which includes some summarization of the debt, a few other items. I was hoping to do it the week of your council meeting on the 4th, and with the strategic planning committee meeting being before that meeting, would it be possible to have it on maybe the 6th of May? Probably about
Maybe
40
6 in the
minutes
evening.
max.
In the
I was gonna-
evening?
Target less than that, but it's normally about 20 slides.
What time did you say?
Tuesday at 5:30?
It's up to this group. I'll accommodate whatever time is convenient for this body.
I can't be there, but I'm
If
sure
we're
it'll
gonna
get,
do it that day, let's do it before 6 PM, because that's the National Day of Prayer event.
okay.
Jim, if we went 5 o'clock, can you be done by 6?
Yeah,
Very good.
as long as you don't ask too many questions.
So May 6th, 5 PM, where at?
This room is ideal because of the projector and the spacing.
Okay. And that's all members, not just the committee?
That
Okay.
is best because it does, it becomes part of our reporting and part of our review
Right.
for our bond rating.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other new business? Ms. Mayor?
I will be super quick because I don't have a ton. Wanted to just touch base on the alley vacation map that Mr. Russell mentioned. We will most likely present following a similar process to the zoning map update, so there'll be extensive communication on any alleys that would be under consideration for vacation. As well as, continue to please be vigilant and communicate to residents the importance. We are continuing to see some spread, though our numbers are starting to go back down. And vaccinations are widely available within our community to those 16 and years of age and older. So please encourage those that you may know that have not yet gotten vaccinated to get vaccinated. And then finally, a note, Sergeant Dan Herman and his son are actually the first responders of the week through WTOL and 13ABC. I think they're kind of being recognized on both, I believe, and I apologize if I'm misstating which one they're being recognized, but very cool to see the city of Findlay and our fine men in blue law enforcement being represented and representing our community well there. So that is it for me. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Slough, second Mr. Niemeyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Everybody gets to leave except Mr. Hellman.
Did he serve here?